Oh God, you'll see me. Can you hear me? It says I am live. I hope. I think. I'm gonna check. What do we think, Doggo? Do we think it worked? Oh, it says connect to. No, wait. No, wait. Yes, it worked. I think it worked. Okay, people can see me. Okay. I had a moment there where OBS, like, it connected, but literally it was like sending 10 kilobits per second, and then OBS froze, and then I had to close it and reopen it. I'm like, I'm gonna have to make a new stream, and people are gonna have to try to come find me, and we're gonna lose all the chat history. But we, okay, people can see and hear me. Awesome. Bendita is Bendita-ing. She's all snuggly. All right, thank you all so much for joining me. We'll see where Bendita, if she's gonna stare at me like that the whole time. Yeah, there was, that's not surprising. You probably saw a lag spike when, like, OBS was trying to finish connecting. Yeah, she's back to napping, hopefully. All right, well, hi, everyone. Happy Friday. How is everyone doing? Okay, 4K connection. We love to see it. We love to see it. Y'all were having like a big old conversation before I came in. I am currently writing a response to an article that the New York Times has been like, I don't know what's happening. Journalists this year like discovered polyamory in a big way, and they've also discovered like talking about sex in a big new way that I don't really like. I feel like it's probably always been a thing. I feel like this year it's been like more of a mainstream publication thing. Like, yeah, there's always been like Vice and Cosmo, but now like the New York Times is getting in on it. And they released a sizable article, I think from a guest writer, that is all about like, can a sexless marriage be happy? I mean, really, like the actual title of it is like happy sexless marriages, and it's supposed to be about presumably people challenging the status quo by not having sex in marriage. And it's like, that's not really what it is, and the fact that it's not is very disappointing, because I like talking about and exploring, you know, asexuality and queer platonic relationships and maybe kink as an alternative way to express intimacy. I thought there would maybe be a little bit in there about disability and how medical issues and medical trauma can make sex difficult, and how maybe that might motivate a couple to pursue other alternatives. But no, I'm sad to say we are not that lucky. We did not get that article. So now I'm on page 6. So I'm going to try. My goal is to make the script no longer than 7 pages. I'm going to cut myself off, because if it gets longer than that, it's going to be a real pain to edit, and I don't want to do that to my future self. She's always looking at me. I've been trying to get her to play with toys more, and she, like, literally could not care less. Like, she runs, like, I'll have the toy in my hand, and she'll, like, go past the toy and, like, start batting at my hands, and then just, like, try to get me to snuggle her. Like, she does not care about toys at all. It's very adorable. Going to the NY Times for LGBTQA content means you're going to have a bad time. I know. I keep hoping that someone there is going to, like, understand what's up. And the author who wrote that article, I don't know if she'd identify as a feminist. I don't remember seeing that in any of her information online that she's like a feminist, but she is like an English lit PhD, and she has written several books about motherhood and marriage and sex, and like she's in that wheelhouse of understanding stuff from the lens of like, oh, this sounds kind of extreme without further explanation, but her latest book that came out is supposed to be focused on the ways that motherhood is a furtherance of like the patriarchy and rape culture in a way, because like all of like the touch interaction that's like expected from motherhood. And I'm like, well, that's like an interesting concept. So she kind of like, she's on that wavelength of like, she could maybe get it, but I don't know. I don't know for newspaper articles. I don't know if authors get to choose the headline. I'm assuming the editor probably does that. I think that's probably one of their jobs. Because I've seen it before where when you go to an online article, the URL will actually be different than the title because at some point they were like workshopping the title and they like changed it between picking like the navigation page and the actual article itself and the URL, like what they go out, you know, for their email and all that stuff. So I don't know. It's interesting, but I think it'll be a fun little dissection there. I haven't talked too much about ace stuff lately. I don't know. It just hasn't been, I feel like polyamory has just been like so like in the spotlight this year that it's like kind of hard to ignore that. And I'm trying to work up the nerve to talk about that more. I'm going to do at some point, mark my words, hopefully before the end of June, probably at this point, because I have enough content filmed to get me like 2/3 of the way through May. So probably by June, I hope to have a video out that's going to be like a big analysis of all of the current, the phrase that came to mind was journalistic assault against polyamory. Because even the people that are like, oh, polyamory is fine, I guess, like they still talk about it this way that's like, I mean, polyamory is
Mr. Beansman donated $5.
really
Hey Evie, I don't have a question this week. Just wanted to say thank you for being here.
But like,
my dynamic is going great. Me and Miss added a video
the
chat to our weekly routine and it's been
like,
great.
Why are you trying to give yourself a pat on the back for that? Come on now. Anyways, Mr. Beansman says, hey, Evie, I don't have a question this week, but just wanted to say thank you for being you. Oh, you're so welcome. My dynamic is going great. Me and Miss added a video chat to our weekly routine. It's been great. Awesome. I am glad that suggestion worked out for you, and I look forward to hearing more in the future. So, yes, thank you. I'm glad you like the sweatshirt. It's sort of a weird sweatshirt. It's very thin. I feel like if you're somebody who lives in a typically warm state, like if you're in like California, Texas, I feel like this would be a really great hoodie because it's very thin. It's definitely it's like a late spring hoodie for here. It's like when you're hitting the mid 60s, that's like a good weather for this hoodie, but it's not gonna keep you toasty in January. IME, but it's nice. It's just easy to throw on, good design. I forget I'm wearing this all the time when I go to the grocery store, and I'm like, oh, like, or I have it on when I go to the gym, and it's like, why are people looking? Oh, it's because I have the giant demon. I have the giant demon on my sweater. That's probably the literal devils on my hoodie. I guess it's Baphomet actually, but it's all the same difference to a lot of people anyway, so who cares? But yeah, it's a whole deal. It's from, if you can see, it's from Black Craft Cult. They do a lot of kind of more casual, dark aesthetic fashion stuff. They got socks, they got hoodies, t-shirts, that kind of thing. They got slides, they got gym shorts, they got everything over there. It's such a vibe, like the color of the stamp you ate. Yeah, I like also the fact that it's tie-dye, like for realsies. The tie-dye is very cool. It's like pretty much the reason I picked it. If it was like a little bit of a thicker material that I get more use out of, like more of the year, I'd probably unlock a couple of these. But it's too thin. If I relocated to a southern state, maybe, but not here. It has held up very well, I will say that as well. The editor is the one who makes the headline. Good to know. I was gonna like look that up before I finished the video, but good to have confirmation on that one. All right, so we're getting into it here. I will just kind of give you all the 411 if you are new here. So my name is Evie Lupine, my co-host, who is hopefully, did you all get to watch her climb up the pillow? Is that not the most adorable thing you've ever seen in your entire existence? I mean, you don't have to love my dog as much as I do. That's not a requirement for being here, but I want you all to experience a little bit of the daily joy that I get to experience, which is why she's on camera. So she's adorable. She is literally a princess and the pea, and I love her, and she's perfect, and she's great, and she's amazing, and I love her. Anyways, what the fuck was I talking about? I just got talking about my dog and I forgot. Oh, right. If you're new here, hi. This is an 18+ only stream. So if you're not at least 18, please don't be here. We have people who come by all the time now. They're like, oh my gosh, I finally turned 18. I get to be in the stream. I'm so excited. And we love the respect. Consent is so important. And the best thing that you can do as a young person is learn how to respect consent. So it's going to be a topic we touch on in a little bit here. I recently made a video about choking that I did. This article that I'm going to reference for this stream I'm going to talk about did not come out in time for me to reference it in that video, but I want to talk about it here because if I don't, my head will literally explode. So before my head explodes, let's finish going through this. So 18 plus only, read the rules down below. Okay, we have a great little FAQ down there. It's very easy. It's very simple. No stress, no fuss. Just don't spam the chat. Be polite. Listen to me. Listen to the mods. And, yeah, just be kind. We have a really wonderful little community here. So we like the fact that people are respectful and will help contribute and answer. We do focus on doing an FAQ here. Usually my titles are just suggestions of things we can talk about, but we end up going in all different directions just depending on what people are thinking and feeling for that day. And yeah, I do want to have a little bit of a talk about choking in the news. So I'll probably try to get that rant. I think I'll call it, yeah, it's a rant. I'm going to call it a rant. I'm going to get that rant in early because I imagine people will also have thoughts they want to share. But I will also try to get to some questions. Also, if you want to make sure that I answer your question, you can go ahead and use a super chat like Mr. Beansman did. And you can do that either directly through YouTube or through Streamlabs down below. YouTube does keep 30%, so if you want to save some money and also like not give Google your money, because who wants to give Google more money for no reason? Why not use Streamlabs? I just feel like that's the logical choice. But I usually go in the order that things come in. So let's get into some questions. Her wild trades are definitely showing for realsies. Okay. I know we had a bunch of chit chat before the stream started, which I loved. I did put up a link to the stream quite a bit earlier today than I normally would, and that seemed to be a fun thing. Usually people like don't come into the chat until like right before the stream starts is what I have noticed, which is like fine by me. Y'all live, it's Friday. Live your own lives. Do what you're gonna do, you know? Don't let my stream stop you. Oh no, I hope your husband survives the wine. Describing that like the husband got into the wine again sounds like when a bear gets into something they shouldn't. That sounds like you're describing, the bear got into the cellar again. He ate all the cheese again, damn it. That's what that sounds like. Oh no, I'm sorry about your tinnitus. That really, really sucks. I think recently, this past year, I had a couple of days where I had really bad tinnitus. Oh, I know what it was. I had that like, it was not COVID. I tested like literally 10 times for COVID. It was not COVID. But I had like some illness, like earlier this year, and like my ear was like super like clogged up, and like I couldn't drain it, and it was like full of pressure. Oh god, it was the worst. And there was like really bad tinnitus with it too. 0 out of 10, weirdest illness symptom I've ever had to deal with. It was bad. And if you ever happen to be in that scenario yourself, the one thing that really helped me more than like decongestants or ear drops or anything, I don't even know if ear drops would have helped that, is just laying down with a heating pad on that side and just like encouraging it to kind of loosen and drain naturally. Is very gross, but like that was what helped. So just in case, because like I suffered for days without knowing that there was a solution, so that's why I'm passing that one on. But normally I do not give medical advice. That's just a peer tip from your old friend Evie, and I'm not not trying to be your doctor. All right. 4 years studying BDSM, except I got ran over. What? I'm 55. Oh no, I'm so sorry. That sounds very rough. Wow. I'm glad you're okay, but yeah, that'll definitely that'll slow down the kink participation for sure. Oh shoot. Okay. I lost where I was in the chat. Okay, we're talking about Bandita being perched on her throne, which she is. Yep, I do try to answer as many questions as possible. I know, I am scaring the poor fundamentalists in public, aren't I? Well, I mean, they probably shouldn't go to the vegan grocery store if they don't want to be scared in public, so... I don't know, I kind of blame them for that one. Listen, I have to have my own spaces here somewhere. Okay. I am starting in QPR with my best friend. Exciting. But societal conditioning makes me think I expect more than platonic. How can I start to deprogram and reprogram myself? Okay, that's like an intense process. Just like describing it in that language. Yeah, I mean, I think it's normal that when you're thinking about like maybe I don't know if for you a QPR means like living together or like at least maybe frequently sharing living space together, making other like life decisions, moving, sharing a car, co-owning a cat, whatever that means to you. There certainly is, I think, naturally an expectation of like, well, because we're doing this step, other things are going to happen, and it means other things. And like even as an ace person myself as well, when I have done scenes with other ace people, there have definitely been moments where it's like, okay, I know that I'm ace. I know that you're ace. Are we like totally sure that nothing else is happening here? Like having to check in and like even just like, all right, I'm just so used to living in a world that is dominated by sexual romantic relationships that even in relationships where that's not a thing that's happening, it's still like, are we sure there's not anything else? Because no, we are just friends. Okay, that's just friend energy. Good. Okay. So I think checking in is definitely a good thing to do. I'm not really necessarily sure on like the deprogramming, reprogramming part. I don't know if I would phrase it that way. I think what I would think about doing instead is like, I've been really into like meditation and like mindfulness stuff lately. I'm like experimenting with like what kinds of mindfulness activities I enjoy that I think are beneficial to my life. I've been reading some books about that and trying some things out. And the thing that I keep going back to that I think could be useful in this scenario is trying to consciously remind yourself of like the things that you want in this relationship that are affirming and positive rather than thinking about, oh, these are things I'm trying to avoid. Don't go there. It's focusing on the positive. And that maybe would look like, just having conversations about it. You don't have to get too woo-woo with it. It could be having a little like meditation mantra scenario for like 5 minutes or like writing something down, maybe in a journal of just like, today, this is like the energy I want to take into this relationship. Like it's about setting intentions, like positive intentions for what I want to see happen. It could be morning. It could be the evening before bed, right? I think that's usually like a better time for like reflection versus goal setting, but like whatever time you got in the day, like people got different schedules. I don't want to presume anything, but just focusing on like, okay, so I want to set an intention for today and I'm going to think about putting this energy towards this and focusing on that. And when you develop new habits and new ways of thinking, kind of naturally the old ways of thinking, because they're not being used as much, they tend to go away. And I think as long as you're not dealing with anything that's like really extreme, I guess, like you're not dealing with trying to like get rid of a phobia or something that would require a therapist's intervention. I think we have the power in ourselves to choose new ways to act and to make those new thoughts and new feelings into habits. Like even with something that's like negative self-talk, right? People get really looped into that and it takes time and diligence to work on a new pathway, but you still have the tools in yourself to be able to forge whatever that new pathway is. So maybe I would start by kind of just putting it all together here. Start by like being very clear with my brain wants to call them a QP, and I feel like, why have I never heard anyone call a member of a QPR a QP before? Hello? How has that not been a thing? Okay, come on. So your QP, your QPR partner, to your QP, setting expectations, talking about what you want to work towards, and then on some kind of regular interval, daily, thinking about it, writing it down. whatever that looks like for you that feels safe and comfortable and good. You just like focus on that, keeping that intention there, and then just like having regular check-ins where you're kind of checking your experiences against what your values and goals are, and like seeing how much they're in alignment and trying to, I guess, interpret things to be in that alignment, and just like affirming that it's like okay to want this, is just as valid as any other type of relationship, and you know that you're good the way that you are, and your relationship is functional and complete and happy and healthy and normal. It doesn't have to look like anyone else's relationship looks like, because it's about finding what works best for both of you. I mean, that's really what it is. That's really what it is at the end of the day. It's just finding things that work for you. But that's hard, especially in a society that does not always reward that. So, great question from Hellhound. Love that one. So, I'm going to rant for a minute. Okay, rant time activated. I need to, like, in the future, have an emote that's just, what does a rant emote look like? Do I need to be holding a sign that says rant? I feel like, how else do I communicate that a rant is about to happen? Please put your ideas in the chat. Yes. So we have a super chat from Twixie that says, I was under the impression that the correct term was squish, though that may just be 2014 Tumblr. I remember squish being like a platonic crush. I feel like, isn't like zucchini the term for a QPR partner? I'm gonna test my Tumblr knowledge here. Yes, since there is not adequate language to describe queer platonic partners, some people refer to these partners as zucchini. Squish is a term used to identify aromantic crushes, the desire for a non-romantic or platonic relationship with another person. So it's in that wheelhouse for sure, but a zucchini is the term for the partner. I just feel like Cupid goes with the term, and like, why not? I mean, unless it's like a brand thing, because it's like, I mean, I guess Cupid isn't really spelled that way, but it's like pronounced similarly. We could spell it in a different way. So instead of Cupid, which is like Kewpie, right? Like Q-pie, right? But it's like Cupid. We could definitely spell it like Qupie, right? Actually, I don't know, like, if linguistically that would work in English to make it be pronounced that way. But, like, the linguists can work on it. They can workshop it. They can come up with a way to make the thing sound the way that I want it to. But, like, that's the vision. That's the energy that I'm putting into that. Put on the rant hat. Harsh red lighting, maybe some VFX where your eyes are glowing red, or just a banner that says rant. Yeah, maybe I should do, like, a... this is just like an old meme, right? But like the Among Us, like the meeting, like warning sign thing. Yeah. Does that mean QPR partners are called courgettes in the UK? Honestly, maybe. That's a good point. I don't know if we consulted the UK about that. I don't really think that the average person likes English people enough to do that. Cause yes, yeah, Cupid, like Cupid. I was trying to work in the letter Q from Queer Platonic, but that also works, sure. The rant in the hat. Yeah, I gotta think about that. I'll have to have some kind of, oh, what do they call it? There's a term for it. Like, not a splash page. A stinger. I gotta have a rant stinger that I can play. That'll be fun. The DBT skills are perfect to apply to the situation. Thanks, Evie. Yeah, of course. I mean, it's sort of like not even really just a DBT thing. It's kind of a life. It's more of like a general meditation life hack skill. But yeah. Anyways. Okay, so let's talk about choking. Everyone's favorite topic. I am sure everyone loves it. Oh, there is unrelated. Apparently, there is a 2024 non-monogamy community survey. I'm going to bookmark that because I want to see what the 2023, if they did one, what that community survey looks like, because that could be very interesting. All right, where is that? I'm looking for a post here. Gotta go to my own page to find it. Yep, there it is. I knew that would be the... Oh, wow. I posted this earlier today. I did not realize that. I think... so I'll just link to this in case people want to, like, fully look at what we're talking about here on their own. But, yeah, Cupid makes you think of those Cupid dolls. Yeah, they're creepy. But also some people think they're cute. I don't know. I don't really have a strong opinion, to be honest. So there was a clip of an article headline, which is always a great place to start. Always just solely clipping the article headline with no link and no further context. Brilliant Twitter etiquette. Just that's how you can really make sure people get riled up without actually having any knowledge. But this is an account that I get recommended all the time. I don't know why. I don't know if we have like mutuals or something that I'm not aware of. But she posted this title, and the title of the article says, "Girl, 12, choked during first kiss with boyfriend who says he saw it in porn." It comes as a new study claims that 1 in 8 children are exposed to violent pornography before they reach the age of 18, prompting calls for age restrictions to be brought in. And their caption just said, "It's so over." I don't know what the fuck that means. But they said it's so over, and then it got 70,000 likes, and everyone's arguing about porn in the comments. And first of all, initially, multiple questions happening here. First of all, a 12-year-old with a boyfriend? I know if anyone in my middle school in 7th grade had a boyfriend, parents would be called. That's like, that by itself is like... That seems a little young for a boyfriend in the first place. I feel like we all skipped over that. I think that's a little, like, maybe if it's like a play boyfriend, like, I don't know what that means, but at the very least, questions would typically be asked about that. 2, boy apparently replicated choking that he saw in porn. And then 3, it's because of violent pornography that kids are being exposed to before they reach the age of 18. And this obviously makes everyone very upset. Everyone has very, very strong feelings about it because Americans love being upset about porn, and they love screaming, "Think about the children." Is like is basically our national quote is "think about the children." Well, somehow not thinking about the children in terms of better school lunches, free education, making sure all children have access to warm shelter at night. No, not those things. No. Just porn exposure. That's the only thing we're gonna think about here. First of all, initially, whenever I see that, one, porn is age restricted. If you are on a website that is for adult content, it is already age restricted. OnlyFans, age restricted. All that stuff, age restricted. So what other age restrictions could we be talking about here? Could it be, as some states have already proposed, just making all adult content linked to like a government ID, and you have to input your government ID and prove that you're 18 to ask permission to access pornography. I want to say Germany or the UK maybe has something similar to this already in place, or is like planning to do that. Doesn't sound like a good idea to me. And everyone just blames the porn. And I'm like, well, is it the porn? So especially when you're 12, if you're in America, I think everywhere that I went to school, every single school district had like initial, like, this is what sex is, level sex ed by 5th grade. So they've already known what sex is in a general way for like 2 years. So that's at least 2 years beyond just 5th grade that they could have been having more explicit conversations with children about sex in media, media literacy, understanding things they're going to see online, like porn, like nude images. Like, I remember when I was in school, we had a whole, like, internet intervention, be wary of strangers online. If somebody asks you to send, you know, like, naked pictures or naughty pictures, like, report them, that's wrong. Like we talked about that probably at least by 8th grade. So maybe not even necessarily just porn, but talking about, hey, you're going to be online. There's all these apps. There's Snapchat. There's all different social media, TikTok, everything. And you're going to maybe see things that maybe you haven't seen before. You're not really sure what it is. This is what you should do. This is what this stuff means. Like giving people tools to know how to interact with it, because otherwise, children like to do a thing called modeling. Children are not raised in a vacuum. They do not have all of their own thoughts and ideas arise independently from inside of their own brains. If they are exposed to porn repeatedly, my understanding is later in the article, this is true generally, most young boys that are exposed to porn look for it on their own, even like very, very young. They're looking for it and they're showing it to each other, and it's like a willing interaction to look at this content. By far, in a way, like we're talking like 75+%. I think I saw somebody actually linked to that study I'm thinking of down below. I don't know if I can find it now. Where is it? I guess I can probably just go to my bookmarks here. There we go. Yes, so 1 in 10 under 18 will have been exposed to pornography. Majority of that, about 65%, are boys, and the vast majority of boys that have been, quote, exposed to porn have willingly looked for it. So it hasn't been like, oh my god, I suddenly saw this on a website and I didn't want to and it destroyed my eyes and they melted out of my skull. Like they looked for it. So like we know that boys who are like much younger than I think a lot of people are comfortable like holding space for are like looking for this. They're Googling boobs. They're Googling naked women. Okay? Like that's what happens when you leave kids online and on their phones and on their little baby iPads all day, every day. From the time they're really small, they're going to get curious and they're going to start Googling stuff. I never did that, but I am the exception to the rule I discovered in adulthood. Every single adult man I know, with the exception of the ace men I know and like one other guy, every single one of them was Googling all kinds of things by the age of 12. So it's not surprising that he saw this on his own. But I imagine the people around him, I don't know if he's an older kid, that also could change the dynamic. If we're talking about like a 12-year-old girl and like a 14, 15-year-old boy, that would be really bad. That would be a different conversation. That much of an age gap at these age ranges is very, very impactful. But I'm going to assume he's another 12-year-old because they don't say otherwise in the information we have here. Kids model stuff, they see stuff. And so you have kids that are willfully looking for the stuff and finding it. And they're not having conversations at school during sex ed. They're not having conversations with their parents because most parents are terrified of talking to their kids about sex because they weren't talked to about sex. They don't know how to have that conversation. And so they just go, oh, it's not happening. Let the schools deal with it. The schools can teach my children about sex, if at all. I'll just have one conversation once and that's it. I don't want to think about my kid looking at stuff, touching themselves, doing anything. Can't have that conversation. And so because they're not talking about it, but these kids are like, they're kind of maybe thinking about relationships for the first time. They're trying to explore what adults are doing in their relationships. And when the only examples they see are from porn, of course they're going to fucking copy it. Why wouldn't they copy it? Because it's the only thing they have to go from. And it's probably, even if it is violent porn, what the fuck does that mean? Like, at least in the mainstream porn that I'm aware of, usually it's framed as, even if the woman's being choked, she fucking loves it, she wants it, she's begging for it, it's a fun time, everybody likes it. Like, there's a really big difference between choking in mainstream vanilla porn, where it's like just part of the general sex act that creates arousal and desire, and like German dungeon porn that's like of questionable sourcing and like you're not even really sure if it's consensual or not. Like, worlds of difference here. I think it's much more likely to be the former versus the latter. I imagine that it was being displayed as like, oh, like, well, when the examples I look at, the girl seems like she's really into kissing and like being choked at the same time, and I wanted to try. Like, there's a potential for like this naive exploration, but because there wasn't those previous years of education about sex and consent and like how risky certain behaviors are, and understanding porn versus fantasy versus reality, you end up with people trying stuff and then people getting hurt, people damaging each other, and kids making mistakes. And then for some fucking reason, all of the adults being like, the problem here is that the internet has too much porn on it. No, it's you. You are the problem. Listen, oh my God, I'm like moving my monitor here. I'm going, my rant is too powerful. My rant is too powerful. I'm destroying my desk. It's like, you gotta have conversations. I know that it's hard. I know it's awkward. I'm not a parent. I know people who are parents. I date people who are parents. I do not envy the people who, in this very strange time that we live in, have to navigate having conversations about sex with your kids. All I fucking know is that if you make it a big deal, your kids will see it as a big fucking deal. If you treat sex as this dirty, private, horrible, shameful, awkward thing that is really difficult to talk about, your kids will pick up on that, and then they in turn will be more secretive. They will not know to come to you for help. They will not know how to have those conversations with their future partners, with their future kids when they get to that stage of life. They won't feel safe and comfortable coming to you for help because you didn't make it a safe and comfortable place for them. And like, I think it's always going to be awkward, especially with older teenagers, to have frank conversations about sex, but you can at least make it easier, especially when they're young, starting off having conversations about media literacy and things like consent that you can build from a very, very early age in an age-appropriate way. So when you get to the stage of applying those things to sexuality, it's not like the most traumatic experience of your life as a parent and their life as a child. So kids, as most people know, they pick up on things, they pick up on cues, and if you are giving them no information at any other point, it's not their fucking fault when they get curious and try something and stumble and hurt each other because you failed at your job of giving them the guidance they needed to be able to make better choices. That is it. That is it. It's you. You are the problem. Yes. I wish did she lift her ears up? I know. She's like, over here, she's like, she's like that one Hamtaro character that sleeps all the time. I literally couldn't figure out how to masturbate, and so I googled fingering. That's how I learned about porn. I mean, yeah, like kids, like whether or not parents want to deal with that fact or not, whether or not like anyone who works in child development or education wants to deal with that fact. A lot of kids, especially boys, are very curious. They start touching themselves and exploring at a very young age, more so than a lot of people might assume. And if you don't have any conversations with them between when they start exploring sexuality and when they're doing it with other kids, which could literally be years, that's going to cause problems. So no, it's not the fault of porn. It is the fact that sex ed is being destroyed in this country. Parents cannot and do not know how to pick up the slack, and there's not good information or resources online, and kids are not being given the tools, even in school, for how to have like robust understandings of reality versus fantasy, or even on a basic level that as well. And I know that's hard. Like I was saying, parents, you know, even in my generation, you know, millennials and sort of, I guess, what would I be? I think I technically is a millennial. I don't know, whatever. Like even, like, because even now there are like Zoomers who are in their like mid to late 20s now that are old enough to be parents of young kids if they had kids relatively young. And so like even we're not having those conversations because we didn't know how to, and then we're just like passing the buck down the line. And I don't think there's enough people that are being given enough resources that have the time. I know it's hard because we're all overworked and we're all tired and it's awkward and we don't want to do it and it's kind of gross, and I understand, but this is like, you know, you had to change the dirty diapers. You're going to have to say goodbye to them when they graduate high school and they go off to have their own adult lives. You gotta, you know, you gotta do it. It's one of these, you gotta do it. It's part of the package deal. When you have a kid, and maybe not enough people think about this before they have kids, this is, to me, if you want to have kids that are going to be safe people to other human beings, These are one of the conversations you gotta have. Because otherwise, that's how you get like young teenage boys experimenting on their girlfriends, pressuring their younger girlfriends into trying things that they saw in porn or other boys were talking about. Because nobody's parents anywhere at any point were having conversations about what no looks like, or like what a negotiation is, or what the term, like listening for a yes versus listening for a no. And it's so frustrating that we all just go, oh, we're gonna blame the porn. Because like even people that are very left-leaning and very liberal will still blame the porn. And it's like, no, that's what the conservatives want you to think. Stop. What do you think's going to happen if you're like, yeah, it is the porn's fault? Like, no, we managed this for a really long time. I think the problem is much more leaning towards, like, we're not giving the people the tools they need. Because, like, we're living in a world where, like, everything is, like, suddenly now being AI generated. And, like, VR is becoming more and more of a, like, possibility as, like, an everyday, like, next step of technology. And that's concerning that we're even on this level of the current internet, and people don't have the tools to cope with that. And now we're going to go into a world where like everything is like optimized in like the worst way possible by a bunch of robots and AI and VR. And like, it's going to be so much more everywhere. We don't have the basic tools we need to have to deal with it now. That's like, it's really concerning. Yeah. People only have kids for Instagram clout. Oh no, you're probably right though. There's a degree of that. Imagining a sex ed PSA campaign, if you don't talk to them, we will, featuring porn industry directors. Honestly, I feel like something like that should maybe happen. I feel like there's like a similar thing with smoking, right? Like if you don't talk to them about it, we will. And it's like a bunch of like, you know, adults that are smoking, or like it's like animated cigarette cartons or something. You know, like we know that we do PSAs for vaping. Why are we not doing PSAs about, like, sexual consent? Like, vaping, I think, is a really serious threat to a lot of young people's health, especially because of the nicotine in it and the fact that it can be habit-forming and addictive and all that stuff, and it was very trendy. Like, if we're willing to do it for that, how can we not do it for sex? When we know that we're contending with people like Andrew Tate and the Manosphere and the lot, we're already dealing with this scenario. Also, this is the other thing too, right? Something that was not talked about in the article or in the headline or in this conversation is like, what media is this 12-year-old consuming that's not porn? That makes a really big difference. Because if you're 12 and you make a TikTok account, you know what you're fucking seeing if you're a 12-year-old boy? Andrew Tate clips, Aiden Ross clips, Sneeko clips. Pick your, I don't know, what's that, there's the Whatever podcast. That's like the new big one. Those are that's what's being fed to you, is like alpha male, like dating fucking content. And then people will make little cutie, like, haha, little funny videos. They're like, oh my God, the kids these days are starting so young, you know, with like makeup or how they talk to girls. And it's like, this is you. We mean, if you're not the parent, you know, it's not literally you, but like, you are doing this. We are doing this as adults. They're getting it from us. It's not because there's something inherently different with kids these days because of when they were born. It's because of the media environment they're being exposed to, and that they're not being given other tools. They don't have other spaces to be able to process and have a different relationship to childhood. And this is why, like, we ever see anything about Sephora kids? You know, Sephora, like, tweens that go in and, like, destroy the makeup. It's because they don't have their own space anymore. It's because the media online is like primarily catered to adults, and like the only thing that is mostly for kids is like family vlogging. There's not like the same kind of, there's not like Winx, you know? There's not like Neopets is still around, but it's like the hellscape. I'm pretty sure these days, like the websites and spaces we had online that were like for kids do not exist in the same way they did. So they're leaping into adulthood in a lot of ways, like much more seriously, because they're modeling what they're seeing from other adults, and they don't have the same kind of media that was just for them like they had a long time ago. So anyways, that's my rant, I guess. Yeah, the Joe Rogan podcast, definitely that too. Can Romania throw Tate in prison already? Hopefully soon. I think I heard his trial's going forward, so we'll see about that. My parents were very progressive and had frank and open discussions with me about sex starting in like kindergarten, and it was still sometimes awkward to talk to them in my teen years, so I can't imagine what a more conservative and sheltered upbringing must be like. From my experience and my knowledge of other people that had a similar upbringing to me, like in my generation, it was one conversation we had once and then never again. And then usually your parents would say, you can talk to us about anything, but like the door would never be willfully opened beyond that point at any other time. One quote in the PSA, we don't even talk about consent, do we? No, we just get straight to it. And then I never act like that in real life. Yeah, yeah. I have worked in retail makeup, and it's terrifying how much teenagers think they need active ingredients. Oh, I know. Don't even get me started on that, girl. I can't do it. I can't, I feel like it's not their fault. It's like, as much fun as it is to like poke fun at people online, like at the end of the day, if a 14-year-old thinks they need retinol, it's because something has been fundamentally miscommunicated to them, or because of the spaces that used to be theirs no longer exist. Right? Like when I was growing up and I went to the mall, I had the Sanrio store, I had Limited 2, there was Claire's, Build-A-Bear Workshop, we had like, there were stuff that's very like tween, like older elementary school, like younger middle school age range stuff that we could go to that like you could explore that stuff in and not just see people advertising like preventative Botox to like 20-year-olds. And then the people who watch the 20-year-olds getting the preventative Botox are sometimes 12-year-olds. And they think, oh, well then I need to get that. Because like, what else do they have? You know, what else do they have? It's terrifying. Sex ed in my high school was basically saying if we had sex with one person, then technically we were also having sex with everyone else they had had contact with. So better just to not do it. Yep, that's very, very common as well. It's not their fault because the parents aren't helping because the parents are looking into whatever. Yes, like it's like hard because you don't want to blame the kids. I don't want to blame the parents. Like it's a kind of a little bit of everyone's fault, except for like younger kids. But like never totally, right? Like I understand, I have empathy for why parents struggle to have these conversations and know how to interact with their kids. Because if they were not given tools, it takes a lot more work to develop those tools when you weren't given them when you were a kid either. I understand that, especially everyone working multiple jobs, working long hours, constant stress, constant fatigue. I get it. I understand. But there's like multiple simultaneous feelings of the society structures that are in place to help teach kids that are just like not doing what they need to be fucking doing. And suddenly it becomes every other adult's problem. Like instead of, I don't know, reforming sex ed curricula around the country and maybe having different social standards for parenting and conversations about that. Because I know other countries are different. Like there's like a really famous... is it like a McDonald's commercial or a Wendy's commercial? I think it's a McDonald's commercial that's from Spain, and it's like a kid asking like what sex is or something, and it's like a misunderstanding, but like it's still in like a McDonald's commercial. So like other societies, other cultures do not have as much of a hang up around talking about sex as much as we do. So clearly we could build a bridge and get over it. And like, if we want to be better than our parents, this is certainly one area we could fucking try a little harder at. Instead of making it every other adult's problem. Like, oh, no. Every other adult has to censor themselves online because what if the kids see, you know? Yeah, like, before anyone uses retinol, they need to be like on a sunscreen habit. And I think if kids like I don't know, because we're on this topic, I'll just give my Sephora kids brief opinion here. I think that especially if you have a kid that's maybe dealing with like dermatillomania, so like a skin picking disorder or something, or they have acne, like there are use cases where topicals make sense. If you have an active kid, they're doing sports outside a lot of the time, great to help them come up with a good skincare routine, a little moisturizer, little sunscreen, teaching them how to wash it off at night, not to sleep in their makeup when they start wearing it. If they do dance, right, they are wearing makeup, having them a little micellar water, doing a little double cleanse. Like, there's ways to play with that kind of stuff, like, because it's for play, that's not too expensive. That is teaching kids good lifetime habits. Like, I think building a habit around like moisturizer and sunscreen should be the same as like teaching kids to brush their teeth. Wearing sunscreen is something everyone needs to do. It's basically never a bad thing. And it's a good habit to get into when you're young, because it can be harder to develop that habit when you're older if you have to learn to do it, think to do it in the first place, decide it's important, spend money on it, blah, blah, blah. So having it as more of a baseline, I think, would be perfectly fine, and that would work great. But kids don't really need to be using actives, and I think maybe educating them about like the science of it could be interesting. And like, even if they wanted to do actives, right, your BHAs, your AHAs, your retinols, etc., most of that requires that you have like a good skin barrier, one, that you have problems to solve, and that you're on a sun protective routine, because if you don't have sun protection but you're doing all the fun actives, you're not really doing anything beneficial. You're just causing damage. So that is that on that. I never talked about it with my parents. Your slurping was ASMR. Thank you. This is my, this is actually, I'm on track with this today. I'm at the 6 o'clock part, and I'm going through it, baby. This is, creatine powder, by the way. It's very strong. I have to dilute it in that much water, because if I don't do that, it's not even sweetened, but it's like naturally very, very sweet. And kids don't need an anti-aging regimen before they reach double digits. Yeah, that's true. No, she's still there. She's on her pillow. She's being sneaky right now. Before 25, you should really avoid active ingredients. I mean, like, it depends on what active ingredients, right? I think that, like, I was using BHAs, like, probably from the time I was, like, 21 or 22, because I've always had acne, and, like, I think there's plenty of actives that are perfectly fine to use, like, when you're in your early 20s, I don't really have a problem with. But if you're using them and then not supplementing that with, like, making sure you're maintaining your skin barrier, if you don't really know what that is or how to maintain it or what it looks like, or, you're not on a sunscreen routine, it's going to be difficult. Yeah, it is. It's a lot. Listen, this is apparently how much I'm supposed to be drinking. Also, I had a kidney stone. In my defense, I had a kidney stone. I need to be drinking this much water. In my defense, I would like to not have a second one. Yeah, like, part of the reason why I said that for kids with dermatillomania and stuff is because having a skincare routine, like putting on a moisturizer or something, or having a face washing routine, can be a good alternative to teach yourself to do when you have the urge to skin pick, because you get that tactile feedback of your fingers being on your skin, but you're not doing anything harmful, and you're doing something to help your skin. And I think that, like, just helps you develop a more positive relationship with it. Speaking as somebody who has struggled with that for, I don't know, probably since I was like 12. So that's my not professional opinion about that. Yeah. I mean, like, it depends on what you mean by that age. If you're talking like early 20s, it can, especially if you're really oily and acneic. Absolutely, active ingredients can help. I don't think anyone, and also retinols can be prescribed for acne as well. So that's really like topical, like, there's use cases for topicals for younger people. Maybe not if you have a glass baby skin, but for teens with like problematic, air quote, skin, right? Like there are cases where that stuff helps. Legit, this does help me drink more water though. It helps me stay invested in finishing it, because I don't want to waste the creatine. Anyways, so that's my Sephora kids thing. There was like one other element to this like kids choking debacle I wanted to rope in. What was it? I talked about the parenting. I talked about the young age. I talked about pornography. I talked about conservatives, literacy. Oh, I know what it was. The monitoring. This is a really interesting thought, and I would love if maybe somebody who is a parent has like more thoughts about this, or like more knowledge in this area, because I've heard and I've read a lot of articles that have talked about you know, the monitoring of the kids' everything, right? Their phones, computer usage, their iPad, social media, their messages. Like, there's, especially it seems like these days, there's like a very heightened level of paranoia. Oh yeah, like single digits. Yeah, yeah. If you're like, if you're like doing dance or theater or something and you're a young kid, I think, you know, having a moisturizer and stuff, you know, to help make it so your skin doesn't dry out from having to remove makeup all the time, I think that that's probably okay. But like, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. You know, just a little, slap a little moisturizer on and make sure little faces don't burn when they're outside. I think that's you can get a little 2-in-1 moisturizer sunscreen combo for like an 8-year-old kid that's outside of the time or that's theater or whatever. I think that's fine. I don't think that should be a problem. Sunscreen is important. Anyways, I could talk about that forever. But the monitoring aspect of it is very interesting because I think that there's a paranoia that I've seen a lot. Have you ever seen the TikToks or like the Instagram reels of the people that are like really into locking everything the heck down when they go into a hotel room, and it's like they got extra little lock in the door and they got the door stop and they check everything and they look for cameras in every little crevice, and they have some like wand thing they use. I think it's to scan for like electronic devices. I don't know what that's for exactly. They lock everything down super hardcore, and they're like, oh my gosh, I almost got abducted at Target today. If you see a zip tie on your car, it means that you're a target for abduction. Like, some of it's parody, but like a lot of people legitimately are really paranoid. Like, instead of doing things that you should be doing, like, I don't know, scanning for bed bugs before you bring your suitcase in, like, you know, things that would be helpful, they're like, I'm gonna make it really hard for me. Like, it's security performance. I think a lot of it, cynically, is because those people make money on Amazon links to the products they have in their TikTok, so think about that. They may not really be doing all of that for themselves, but there are people in their audiences that are that level of paranoid that are looking at what they're doing and going, yeah, I should be doing that. And suddenly, they've created a fire hazard in their hotel room because they've made it impossible for themselves to easily be able to get out in an emergency because they have been led to believe a delusion that in their 700 room hotel room, or in their cruise ship of 1,000 people, somebody's gonna break into their room for some reason and do something at some point, and that's a meaningful problem in America that needs to be dealt with. So you have all this like really paranoid stuff, and then that translates into the way that people treat their kids too, with like everyone's like, oh my god, everyone's dangerous online. We gotta protect them at all times. So we're gonna parental controls and everything. Like literally, physically monitoring the kid's location with GPS on their. I literally have waved my hand around so much that I met my step count for this hour without even getting out of my seat. That's how animated I've been. To be fair, I did walk for like an hour on the treadmill earlier today, did a little speed walking while I was answering emails and stuff. So. Anyways, there's like all this monitoring that happens, and then they like GPS track their kids, and they have all these parental controls on every app, and they're checking all their messages and all their social media. I know as a teenager, having that level of monitoring would have been devastating. Like, you need to be able to give your kids a degree of privacy, especially when they become older teenagers, because a lot of people, like, apparently don't let that go when their kids go to college and they go into their 20s. And if it's a safety concern, there are others, especially for older kids, actual young adults, there are ways to provide additional safety using technology that do not involve aggressive, invasive monitoring. Some to the extent that the kids don't even know that it's there. And that's really concerning. But somehow at the same time, we're watching our kids on GPS trackers from fucking anywhere we want to, all the time, 24/7, monitoring their location on video, on phones, reading all of their private messages of their friends. All of this is happening, but we're not having conversations with them about their Google searches. Like, somehow we are over monitoring kids, and I think a lot of people set it and forget it. They set it and forget it, and they just go, I got all these things, I'm tracking everything. Performative security theater. I have done what I need to do as a parent to keep my kids safe. but they don't ever like check in on it. They're not really like in detail being like, oh, my kid at 11 p.m. at night on a school day on his phone has been Googling boobs repeatedly. Maybe we should start having some certain conversations about things. But maybe they look at it, maybe they don't see it, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't give them that much detail. But they're kind of together doing the, I'm not seeing anything. I'm being a good parent, I'm monitoring, I'm watching, I'm participating. But then they're not actually like, they're monitoring, but then somehow not intervening. If you're monitoring your kid that much, at the very least, the minimum positive that should come out of that is when your kid is looking up porn. And then, like, you can talk to them about it and be like, hey, it's fine. A lot of adults do it. It's okay. I'm not judging you, but here are some things you maybe need to know. I know it's cringe hearing this from your old man or your mom or whatever, but, like, we got to have this talk. I'm sorry, and that should just be what it is. But that's respecting people as individuals. I know we can't do that. Yeah, like we're not helping. And also, exactly. Kids can always work out ways around parental control. So that's definitely a big part of it too, is like people are thinking they're doing all this stuff, but then kids are pretty much always better at technology than their parents, with like certain exceptions, like generationally. Like, I think millennials are probably better at like navigating to where a file folder is on a desktop compared to like, their Gen Alpha kids. Like that's, there's exceptions there. But like kids will figure out how to get around parental controls. And that's not the same thing as supervising. There's monitoring and there's lack of privacy. And then there's supervision. And I think people are confusing the two. Like, there's supervising what your kids are watching, as in you are aware of what they're doing in the computer because, like, they're in the family computer room when they're on the iPad and you can kind of see what they're doing. You're talking to them about what they're doing and you're in the room and around when they're on technology, so you're aware of what they're engaging in versus setting and forgetting it. And all day, back of the car, going to school, coming from school, going to soccer practice, going to run errands on the weekend. It was all day, every day. They're out of sight from you, doing God knows what on that device, and you're just like trying not to think too hard about what they're doing on it, I guess. So there's like supervising is not the same thing as aggressive, invasive monitoring. And people don't always know exactly what they're doing. And then that means that people aren't aware of what the kids are doing. They're staying ignorant about it, but they're saying that they're aware still somehow at the same time. I don't know. It's very confusing. Yeah. Sadly, no one told the truth about this, is that all of this monitoring and surveillance actually does next to nothing to prevent bad things from happening. Yeah, like, most of the shit that happens is usually, like, between other kids. Like, it's a kid showing another kid something else on their phone, or talking about it at school, or something. Like, the bad things are always gonna happen. Yeah. So many of my coworkers are under the impression that their actual adult children are still their property because I brought them into this world and have a right to control everything. That sounds like a very, very healthy interaction there. Pff, Jesus Christ. Oh my God, yeah. That time in 4th grade when my friend and I were looking up info on the Titanic and a link came up that said Titanic, Tony's big boob photos. What? Wow, that's crazy. I never saw anything about anything online until I was well into adulthood. I'll tell you that. I didn't Google nothing about nobody. I didn't look up anything. I didn't know that kind of thing was on the internet, to be honest. I mean, I somehow was on DeviantArt. And I didn't know things went deeper than fan fiction, okay? I didn't like interact with any of that stuff, so yeah. I'm just very afraid of my son being traumatized like my sibling, but I can see him projecting my own fears to a degree. Yeah, I mean, like, if your kid's on technology all the time, especially if it's, like, school-related and you can't really help it. I mean, I guess it depends on how the school's handling it. I know schools have different, like, policies around, like, iPads and how they use them and everything. And certainly, like, computer labs and stuff as well. It's... how do I want to phrase this? Like, trauma is a very individual experience, and trauma is sometimes impacted by our own beliefs and values, right? Like, if you're somebody who grew up super conservative, thinking that if you look at a naked woman, you are going to hell and you're going to die in hell for all of eternity if the naked woman you see is not your lawfully wedded, under the eyes of God wife. If you accidentally come across a naked lady online because your older sibling was Googling something while you were in the room, you're going to be horrified by that. It's going to be terrible because you're going to think, oh my God, I looked at the bad thing. I'm literally going to die and go to hell now. Like, it's going to be really, really bad for your brain. Whereas if you grow up and you have a little bit of a healthy relationship, to sex and stuff, that kind of thing might happen, but it's not going to, like, stick in your brain and have this automatic, really intense fear response to it. So I think that it's possible to cultivate a relationship to these things where, like, you can know that something is scary and that you don't like it, you don't want to engage in it, but then, like, know to stop looking and, like, not get as, like, hooked in by, like, how intense it is. Like, depending on what it is, right? Because there's sort of, like, just any nudity, and then there's, like, hardcore shit, right? That, like, kids are sending each other as, like, pranks or as a joke or as, like, an older sibling teasing a younger sibling. Like, that kind of thing pretty much happens in all generations as far as I can tell. But that's more of a, like, I think that maybe more goes to the values we instill in our children than anything else, but yeah. Honestly, though, it's so hypocritical of rags like the Daily Star to stoke fear about porn when this Sun literally has softcore porn on page 3 every day. Yeah, exactly, right? It's like, I think it's harder for kids to look at the page 3 of the Sun than it is to Google boobs. Like, it's, when we're kids, like, no one, in, like, the days before internet porn, no one was like, we need to eradicate lingerie catalogs from existence because the kids are looking at them and jerking off to the pictures. So therefore, no one gets to have it. No adult can own a catalog containing a lingerie section because that's going to be a step too far. I mean, we have more rules over, what magazines could be sold in what kind of stores. There's, like, the family-friendly checkout aisles at grocery stores where, like, the Cosmo and all of that is not in plain view. I get that, absolutely. But, porn, internet porn especially, seems to rile people up in a new and unique way that we did not see previously, at least on this scale. Seems the most effective way of protecting them is to arm them with knowledge, which is the one thing no one, no matter how paranoid, wants to do. Yeah, exactly. Like, the paranoia, I think, definitely fuels people to not necessarily feel comfortable giving out information. Projecting fears onto children doesn't help them in the long run. Teaching them bodily autonomy, what is appropriate in adulthood and peer interaction, does more to protect them, yes. Did you saw the guy who was an owner of a BDSM lounge who got arrested for a sexual crime in Montreal? I don't know. I haven't. What is that? Let me Google that real quick. Montreal sex crime is what I'm gonna go with. There's something from 4 days ago. Pair accused of sex crimes at Montreal restaurant. Police say more victims possible. Oh gosh, the girl, she's so young. She's 25 and then he's 49. Okay. Is that the one you're thinking of? Oh, it must be. The incidents took place at the Restro Bar Le Protocol. I don't know, it's so funny to see it spelled out that way. Protocol Kinky Lounge, which opened in October 2023 on St. Catherine Street East in Montreal's Ville-Marie borough. Person was allegedly the victim of sexual assault causing permanent injuries and bodily harm. Jesus Christ. Okay, I will definitely look into this a little bit more because that is very concerning. I don't really know very many people in the Montreal scene, but if anyone knows about that, definitely point me in the direction of some news articles on that because I definitely try to get ahead of covering BDSM news stuff before it gets to the wrong part of the media. It's wild to act like porn's fault. It's not general pop culture. We were all sending each other Goatsy and Lemon Party and 2 Girls, 1 Cup in school, and we didn't start copying those mostly. Yeah, that's also true too, right? Like, I don't remember anyone trying to recreate 2 Girls, 1 Cup. Like, it was very much just like a joke. I think, like, with choking, I think people instantly go, oh, choking, oh my god. And, like, I think to some extent it's valid, because choking is, like, scary and dangerous. But, like, it can be presented as like a fun, enjoyable thing in fairly mainstream porn, and it is getting more and more popular, so it's not surprising to me that people would see it more and then therefore copy it more. But it's not like it's this like super outlandish, crazy thing. Like, it's not to me any different than, you know, a high school boy asking his girlfriend to like do oral sex or anal sex because he saw that in a porn, you know? Like, it's just one of the acts they're going to see online, and, you know, a teenage boy is not going to know about, you know, condom usage or what lubes to use or anything like that without having any, say it with me again, education about it. So that's really what needs to happen at the end of the day. Grumpy old man voice. Kids these days have it too easy. Back in my day, we had to go find our porn under a bush in the woods. I have heard so many people say that. Like, I didn't know that was a thing. Apparently people, like you'd find porn stashes in the woods in, like, abandoned places. That blows my mind. Like, what? Like, like, I guess that's a thing. Wood porn. Not like that, I guess. Oh my god, my dog's so cute. What are you doing, Doggo? On that big pillow. That's your favorite pillow, huh? You love that one. It's so snuggly. My Doggo. My sweet Doggo girl. The availability and variety of pornography in today's culture does require different conversations with younger people than it did in previous decades. It does require more nuance and work. Yeah, we weren't even up to snuff 20 years ago on this stuff. We weren't even now, we're not at the minimum we needed to be at to be good at what people were being exposed to 20 years ago, and it's only escalated and gotten more intense. So, yeah. Woods porn is totally a thing. Apparently, yeah. It's not even just a porn thing, the choking game. Oh, yeah. I remember seeing, it was like a Netflix movie about that, right? Like the choking game. Has been around for a long time. What is everyone... Yeah, exactly. Like, everyone will always reinvent cutting off the air supply to feel something. Do people just jerk off right there in the woods when they find the porn? Or, like, what happens? To be honest, I don't know if I really want to know, but I did ask. Forgetting kids for a moment, we need more sex ed for adults to know how dangerous breathplay is. Also true, yes. It's treated way too casually by so many people. Yes, I have a video talking about that coming soon. There has been some new research and some new data that's come out recently that I think is really interesting, that I think gives us some more of a both a clearer understanding of how risky it is, but then it also unveils exactly how little we do actually know. Yeah. I am proud to say to this day, I have never seen any of the things that we talked about being I never saw Goatsy, I don't know if that's a thing or a place or even what that is. Never saw that. Never looked at 2 Girls, 1 Cup. Never saw Lemon Party. I never saw any of that stuff. I just maintained my pure innocence right up until the day I walked into a BDSM dungeon for the first time. Bring back Habbo Hotel. I mean, kinda, yeah. Bring back Club Penguin. Yeah, why not? Go for it. That's what I say. I will argue that the bottom of my sweatshirt says believe in yourself, and I feel like that's a perfectly fine message. I think they just take mental snapshots of the wild porn. That's crazy. I guess I don't really know what people do when they find stuff in the woods. Oh, they take it home. That seems like weird to take it home, you know? When I've read kids discover a porn stash in the woods and take it home, then years later when they want to get rid of it, they return to the wood nymphs. Yeah, it's how you, does that create a fairy contract? This seems like a great way to make a fairy contract. All right, that's my rant. Basically a video's worth of rants over there about people having a moral panic about 12-year-olds figuring out what porn is, and but also not thinking about the boyfriend part. Honestly, I think kids independently exploring their own bodies and like Googling boobs or whatever, and then like wandering onto a porn website, I feel like that's like relatively developmentally normal. I think attempting to have serious romantic relationships at 12, like maybe should be more concerning. Because it's like, there's like, what is precocious sexuality? And I think I'm more concerned by the like, we're trying to have a serious relationship at that age versus like natural curiosity, you know? But maybe that's just me. I don't know. I'm not sure what the data says on that. I was never on Habbo Hotel. I remember briefly trying Club Penguin when I was older as like a joke, just to see what it was about, and just being instantly like, what the heck? I was like more of a Neopets kid. I never talked to anyone on there. It was great. Me and my lonesome. Just being on Neopets. Well, that's not true. I like played with like real life friends and stuff too, but. Is it weird as a kinkster for me to be anti-porn? Also, Pornhub is banned in my state, lol. I mean, no. I mean, I think there's, like, kinksters come in all different shapes and sizes. Like, there's conservative kinksters, there's anti-porn kinksters, there's, like, Orthodox Jewish kinksters. Like, kinksters can be all different kinds of people. I am not personally anti-porn. I don't really share that because I don't think... I don't think that, like... I don't think you can, like, what's the logical outcome of that is what? Like, if we're anti something because we think it's bad, we should probably ban it and regulate it a lot. Well, is that really going to work with porn? Probably not. And it's definitely not going to happen without there being a lot of unnecessary casualties along the way. So, but yeah, anyone can be anything. I think I was 15 the first time I had a boyfriend. But also we only like dated, air quotes, for like 2 weeks. So, you know, I don't really know. At what point does it really count as a relationship, to be honest? All right, I'm going to try to get some more questions here. Yes, choking is edge play. Good to remember that. Sometimes bad things can happen. I really just learned of VV from the BDSM Summit. I'm an ace kinky girl, so been enjoying catching up. Oh, well, congratulations, Jasmine, and welcome to the group. Happy to have you here. He's well into making a darn fool of himself for hours. Good luck cleaning up that mess, I suppose. Oh, Eric for a few years. Oh, that sounds terrible. Zero recommendations on engaging in that. Can you recommend a device for Electro play? I don't necessarily know any specific brands off the top of my head. My understanding is most of the Viola wand models are either knockoffs of or are white labeled versions of the same base device. I'm not really a fan of Violet wands, so it's hard for me to personally recommend them as like a starter toy, plus they are a little bit spendy. My favorite devices are TENS units, but those are like even more expensive for the most part than Violet wands are. I know a lot of people really enjoy zappers. Those are like pretty easy to find from a lot of reputable sex toy retailers. They have a nice presentation quality to them if you like that, and they're like relatively simple. They're not that like difficult. You're not really like, you're not messing with any knobs or anything that's like, you know, oh, suddenly we could accidentally go from 0 to 100 by accident. Like, you're not messing with any dials or anything. It's pretty easy. Not as delicate as Violet wand parts either. But yeah, that's probably, I would start with the Zapper if I wanted to start with Electro play. And that I think is a brand name. I think there are probably knockoffs of that you can find from, you know, Amazon retailers or something, I always recommend going to a reputable either in-person store or like somewhere like Shebop, She-Vibe, let's see where else, Spectrum Boutique, that wheelhouse if you're looking for, you know, appropriate gear. Yes. Yep, DBT skills all the way. I don't know if I've ever really seen. The only time I've ever really seen Bandita being angry is, I don't know. I've seen her be frustrated. I don't think I've ever seen her be angry. Maybe when like a dog won't like leave her alone, and then she's annoyed. She doesn't like it. Mm-hmm. Were you going on a date at 12? The water fountain? That is a good question. Yeah, exactly. How can you date at 12? You can't drive. You can't go anywhere. You can't do anything together. Yeah, what are you doing? Like, yeah. Is the boyfriend also 12? Pretty sure porn size 18 plus. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely part of that, the whole conversation to be had there as well. Also doesn't really do anything, is basically any VPN will bypass the blocks. Oh, sure. Yeah, that too. Are VPNs long for this world? I feel like at some point VPNs are going to be banned. That's my concern. New Zealand had an amazing PSA about porn online and how to talk to teens about it. I mean, we should steal it from them then. No shame. Just if it worked for them, why not, you know? Because that's the thing, right? Like, we're very international now. I'm sure we can see resources from other countries that, like, oh, we tried this program with this message and it reduced teen pregnancy or assault rates or whatever by X percentage points. Like, we know that those usually involve data tracking to see if it has a meaningful impact. And if it does have a meaningful impact, why not just be like, hey, can we borrow this and kind of make it our own? I think that should be fine. What? I unfortunately had the displeasure of hearing my 16-year-old stepson barking on FaceTime with his girlfriend. I mean, at the same time, I would never do that. As a teenager, I would be too mortified, but I definitely would have, like, I mean, like, I did a lot of unintentionally, I didn't realize it was kinky, but it was kinky things when I was, like, an older teenager. And I, like, looking back on it, I was like, oh, that's what that was. But, like, I didn't realize that my boyfriend and I buying dog collars for each other was, like, a sign of a sign of something. I definitely wasn't getting into, like, dog roleplay at that age. But, like, there is a kink element there for sure. Yeah, if they had been presented better models ahead of time, the porn wouldn't have had any effect because it already know it wasn't realistic. Yeah. Welcome, Gary from Ireland. It depends on how you define porn, but I'm an exception to the rule too, Evie. I didn't visit a porn site until I was like 23, and by then I was already well educated on sexuality. Yeah, I think you've go in. Like, ideally, I know it's scary because people are like, oh my god, we're going to ruin these children's innocence if we talk to them like too young about stuff. But you don't have to talk about just porn in this conversation. This is like for all media, especially in a day and age where we have AI generated fake content and rage farming and like all of that stuff you have to contend with already. You can have conversations about literacy and discerning reality from fiction online without it being just about porn and therefore being age inappropriate in some way. And that ideally should start, like, I don't know, like probably older elementary school at the latest. I feel like that would be a minimum place to start, if not earlier. Mm-hmm. I mostly learned by secretly marathoning Sexplanations videos. I mean, yeah, there are also good resources online too. Like Sexplanations is a great resource. I sure hope people are not only having kids for the Instagram vibes. Question from Mockingjay. Opinion on tech dom / tech control merged with CNC blackmail. I see it all the time on 2DFD Findom Twitter. All right, risky search of the day. We're gonna Google 2DFD. 2D femdom. Oh, so it's like if somebody is like a 2D VTuber, but a femdom, basically. Yeah, I don't know if it's as interactive as like a VTuber would be. Honestly, I'm surprised that didn't happen sooner, and I haven't heard about it before. Interesting. I did not know that was a thing. Okay, well, now that I know that, let's go back to the question. I'm not sure what tech control means. This definitely seems more like online pro-dom stuff than like BDSM lifestyle stuff, which is like more my wheelhouse of knowledge. I think anytime you're doing blackmail over the internet with a stranger, that's like a very, 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 very high risk territory. Especially if you're doing things that are like legitimate actual blackmail and not like role play. So my opinion is to be very cautious if you want to engage in stuff like that. But I think it's possible to do it in a way that is safer if you're not actually doing real blackmail and it's very controlled. I think the hardest part about doing something like that online is finding reputable people, because due to the nature of what that is, it is rife with scammers. It is something that is pretty much always constantly full of people. They're basically, bot accounts that aren't even real, sending messages to everyone who interacts with their account and, being like, hey, like, I'll be your dom, send me money, haha, like just trying to get whatever desperate person, to send them money. And like real pro doms, I think have, and I'm not sure if this is true for like role play things online, but real working pro doms have a vetting process. Usually we'll have a booking form. You don't just get to start talking to them over Twitter DMs and then, that's where it begins. You usually go to other websites. There's a whole protocol in place. It doesn't start with them demanding blackmail. So it's very risky. I would just be concerned of people's ability to discern whether or not the person they were interacting with was like a genuine, legitimate dom in that space and had their best interest in mind. And like I've heard some stories. I've had comments and letters and stuff over the days of me being on YouTube of people that will tell me, hey, Evie, I'm 50 years old. I'm getting into my sub side for the first time in my life. A couple of months ago, I met a dom on Twitter, and they demanded that I send them all these compromising photos or like this information about my work, and like, I just did it because I just assumed it was real or true. And then now they're actually really threatening me and they're extorting me and they already have my bank account information. What do I do? You try to get your account frozen? You put a fraud alert on your card? Like, sorry, bub, you got taken for a ride there, and it was because you didn't like stop and think. You just led with your dick. And when you lead with your dick, bad things happen. But you get taken advantage of. That's really what it is. But I don't know. That seems risky to me. Blackmail roleplay sounds like it could go into reverse very quickly, and a simple recording would have you by the proverbial balls in your toast. Balls and toast, not both at once. That would be terrible. No, yeah, I mean it's bad. There's too much risk involved there, and I think people. I actually talked about this for a Patreon video. I did a Patreon video about like blackmail play and blackmail role play and like findom stuff, like kind of like darker findom, not femdom, although it's usually both. And like a lot of people talk about like getting into it, and like especially when it's just an online only fantasy, you're not doing it in real life, people get too into it and they kind of lose themselves in it, and like it takes a mature ethical dom to know how to set those boundaries that people won't or can't set for themselves, or know which people are safe to play with that can actually really handle what's happening. I'm not really sure why all that stuff disappeared. I don't know. Regulatory capture. The death of malls. Amazon. Come on, there's a whole list of reasons. Honestly, being into BDSM has really taught me how to have frank discussions around sex, kink, consent, etc. I do feel prepared for whenever my toddler grows up and has questions. Well, that's good. Good. I think that's awesome. Started from a better place. That's what we like to see. IDK about y'all, but in the U.S., but over here in the U.K., we've had protests from parents against relationships and sex education. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. I know, it is ridiculous, isn't it, doggo? So funny. Is a kidney stone more painful for men than women? I think I've actually read that it's more painful for men. I think that has something to do with the anatomy involved in moving a kidney stone. But I've heard it's more painful for men. I'm not sure how much of that is based on like gender differences. And oh my god, this reminds me. I heard somebody at a convention that I went to last month say that like women, like they had kind of a point, but they way overshot it and went into like what the fuck territory. Like I was really disappointed in the class, to be honest. I did not recommend it. I did not recommend they bring back the presenter. It was very disappointing. But they were talking about pain tolerance in women and how like women are like babied, and this is like from a queer women like presenter, by the way. She was talking about how like women are babied for every little thing, and like they're taught that like everything is painful, and like they always get like doted on when they're kids, when they like scrape a knee, or you know when they trip or something, and that like teaches them to have a reaction that's negative to pain, because you know the reaction of parents to those experiences tell them that they should be in pain. And like there's sort of this like psychological effect of like, do you process something like, and there is some truth to this, like culturally, like how you process pain and how you think about pain can be different. Like if you've ever played with somebody who's like kind of stereotypically like Eastern European, Slavic, Russian, like a lot of people in that culture have a very different experience of pain than maybe like an American does. And so when you try to ask them if something is painful or not, they're like, painful. Like I don't know, like it's intense, but it's not painful. Like they have just a different relationship to it. So there's a little bit of that in there. But I was like a little insulted. They were like, wait, women are the ones who get babied and have all their pain attended to, and that means that women have a lower pain tolerance than men on average? Because all of the data that I can think of that I've seen says that women have a higher pain tolerance. It's more subjected to hormonal fluctuations in men, because women have like more of like, I don't know if maybe more is the right term, but like women have more pronounced hormonal fluctuations than men do. Men also have a hormonal cycle, by the way, I will say that. But for women, it tends to like be obviously more intense. So there's that, and that can definitely impact things. But I'm like, I think everything I've read indicates that women actually have a higher pain tolerance. So what's that about? It was very strange. I'd never heard anyone say that before. Because to me, that kind of sounds like the point is like, don't comfort your child when they're in pain. I think that's a bad lesson. I don't feel like that we should be encouraging that. Yeah, gallstones are also bad. Yeah, it's definitely in that realm of terribleness. What the fuck? Doctors would prescribe me pain meds way before they would for my wife. Yeah, I know, right? Like, that's what I've always, like, heard is, like, women, especially if you're, like, a woman of color, like, doctors would be like, oh, just take some Tylenol. Like, if that's true, why don't women have such a have a radically different experience of like IUD insertion? So my inside baseball knowledge about IUD insertion is that I've looked at the scientific research about this, because this isn't just like doctors being sexist. Legitimately, doctors have done research on pain reduction methods for IUDs. They have looked at topical numbing agents, they have looked at injections for numbing, Tylenol, any sort of different thing that you can do for pain reduction for IUD insertion. And at least in the studies that I read, there was no meaningful reduction in pain between the control groups that had no kind of pain reduction interventions and patients that did have pain reduction interventions, including things like lidocaine injections or topical numbing or Tylenol or whatever. Like, none of that did anything for it. So that's I think why they don't do it as routine is based on those studies. There's not a meaningful benefit from a lot of the most commonly done and understood pain reduction tools. Like, basically the only thing that really seems to consistently help is literally being unconscious. Like, that's the only thing. The cervix is a powerful tool. So I think that's probably that's probably why that happens. But even then, there hasn't really been a lot of work to troubleshoot that and be like, let's do more studies. Like, we know how Viagra works. We understand a lot about erectile dysfunction, but somehow we keep doing studies about erectile dysfunction that absolutely does not stop us. Whereas you get a couple of studies about IUD pain and different methods for pain reduction during, insertion, and we go, well, that's kind of it. Guess that sucks. We're not gonna even offer an alternative because the science, at least not as a routine that we're not gonna offer most people alternatives without being asked, because the science indicates that it's not actually efficacious. So I feel like there would be way more studies if it was men at the very least. So yeah, it's just very funny to me because I feel like that's the opposite of most people's experiences. Women constantly being told by medical professionals their pain isn't real, isn't that bad, whether it's IUD stuff, birth pain, periods, any old damn thing. You just always get told that pain's not real. It's not. So I thought that was really interesting that we suddenly, in a class about pain processing, made a solid 30% of the content about cultural conditioning around pain and how women get babied and men are supposed to toughen up. And it's that's not as clear cut as you're making it sound. I thought that was disappointing. Have I missed much? First Lives of Yours I catched. We spent a lot of time talking about sex ed and choking. So if you cared about that, you missed a lot. We're just kind of getting into some questions now. So yeah. And we talked about QPRs and affirmative positive goal setting. I've never really liked the is blank more painful for men or women questions, because unless men or women feel pain exactly the same, it's almost impossible to tell. Yeah, it's also definitely there too. I've never heard of ibuprofen lysine before. I'll have to look that up. Yeah, I think it's anyways, pain is interesting. It's very complicated. And I'm sure anyone who's ever had to work with a pain doctor before, if you have chronic pain, you understand how complex it is. Well, yeah, because it's certainly not the standard for parents to actually have direct conversations with their kids about stuff, I think, is the difference. Living in Australia, I was taught to put on sun cream as opposed to sunscreen. Whenever I was doing an outdoor activity as a kid, I guess it's different in different countries. I mean, I grew up in Florida, so I'm not really sure how. I mean, I lived a lot of different places, but my first formative memories from 3 to 8 were in Florida. So, Like, I'm not sure what it's like in other places. I don't remember it being like an explicit daily thing. I remember it mostly being a like summer, you were going to the beach, the pool, not a daily thing, and not even necessarily because like I like soccer's in the fall, and like here we don't really get sun's not out, don't really worry about it. Like it wasn't as routine of a thing. It was more of a special occasion. You're going to the pool or a lake or something. I'll follow a lot of travel blogs, and the ones that are more concerned with those triple locks or something over like pickpockets in central Rome tell me they don't actually travel. Yeah. In fairness, you can hear about so many incidents though through the internet these days. Yeah, that's also true. You get a lot more stuff coming in. I think young people are better off to not have phones in the first place, but it's kind of hard nowadays. Yeah, I mean, like, I think probably phones are not good for child development, but it seems like a moot point, especially because, like, so, like, kind of kids' whole social worlds are on phones now. Like, we've eliminated so many other ways of socializing, and especially, like, in a post-COVID landscape where there's so much more, like, online school, and, like, a lot of kids are doing remote school now, too, and a lot more homeschooling. Like, you don't want to completely shut kids off, and, like, sadly, I think that, phones are they're here to stay, better or for worse. There have been some really kinky songs on the radio lately. Definitely need to have conversations or keep them in appropriate spaces. Yes. Oh my gosh. I've been at the gym. They've been playing like the Hot 100, and I go late at night, so maybe it's partly because of this. But I've noticed that and I don't want to like I feel weird saying this because it makes me sound like a boomer. I'm like the kids. All the songs are about sex these days. Like I think, you know for the last 50 years of pop music, like the lyrics have oftentimes been very adult in nature, but there's a huge difference between a song where the chorus is like choke me or like bite me, spank me, blah blah blah, versus like pour some sugar on me or like give me your sweet lovin'. Like one of them is much more direct than the other and much more explicit. I actually talk about that in a video I've been working on. And I think that there's been a lot more like explicit, like direct, not just implied sexuality, but the songs are literally like, oh, no, you're literally just saying the acts you want to do, like by name. We're not doing any kind of like cutesy song euphemisms anymore. It just is what it is. And I find that so interesting because we have these like songs that are like very kinky, very sexual, getting premiere radio play all the time, but at the same time, supposedly we're dealing with like a Puritan era of like the Zoomers aren't having sex, they're not listening to they're not looking at porn, they're not losing their virginity. And I find that so interesting that simultaneously like TikTok and like pop media and music is like so saturated with kink iconography and really explicit songs and media and like TikTok trends and all that. But then apparently we're also dealing with people that are like supposedly like the most sexually conservative generation in, decades or whatever. I find that to just be very, very fascinating. I think that the sexual content of contemporary music is ironically a redirection of the sexuality being repressed basically everywhere right now. Oh, that's an interesting theory. Like, so basically, because it's being repressed in so many other places, it's coming out more in modern music. Yeah, it's very interesting. Interesting. I could see that maybe being the case too. But also, it's like people are saying that they're uncomfortable with like sex scenes in books. In like movies and TV shows. So I don't know how much, like, I don't know if people want to even interact with that in musical form. I think a lot of people, I mean, they're just being more vocal about it being uncomfortable, but also at the same time, like if you go to like the Target book section, almost all of it is like romance novels and like erotica. Like they're sort of like mystery but with sex, and mystery but with sex. Like it's basically like nonfiction self-help history books, and then like every other genre, like fantasy but sex and sci-fi but sex, because like everything now is like catered to book talk, which is primarily like horny women who like reading books with sex in it. So like I think there is a lot more media that is a lot more directly sexual, so I get kind of the pushback against it, but it's also interesting at the same time. It's like it's not even just that it's like coming out in other areas because people aren't expressing it physically. Like people don't even want to be reminded of it in really big pieces of media, which for like non-ace heterosexual people I find to be fascinating. I find that to be absolutely fascinating. Do you have any recommendations for books on polyamory? Oh boy, do I. I've been a subscriber to your channel for a long time. Yes. I haven't updated the list in a while, and there have been a couple of more recent publications that I really like. So, Jessica Fern is a really great author. She has 2 books currently out. Plus like a workbook, I think maybe, that kind of goes along with one of the books. There's Poly Wise and Poly Secure. I've heard nothing but good things from those 2 books. Those are really good. This might seem like a counterintuitive recommendation, but the Polyamory breakup book is also good, because it's also written by somebody who works in the therapy field, who works with clients that are polyamorous and also is polyamorous themselves, or I think they, even if they're not poly themselves, they work with that client base primarily, so like they represent it in a fair-handed way, I think, and they talk in that book about like the things that lead to like breakups in polyamory and misconceptions about it, and like there's ideas in there that are really good just for knowing what to expect getting into polyamory, that I think it's better to read that beforehand versus like after a breakup's already happened. So I'd probably read that one. And then my general kind of like favorite intro to the subject book would probably be Opening Up, because I feel like that's like the broadest view on polyamory. It's like the least, or open relationships in general. Like it's not as prescriptive. I find a lot of the other books tend to be very like, this is like the way to do poly, and if you do it some other way, it's not going to work. And like there's not really an allowance for kink or things. So those would probably be like my top 4 current recommendations. So there are like, there's a bunch of books I haven't read yet. I know Liz Powell has a book. There's like building designer relationships. There's like a bunch of other like there's like a multi-amory toolkit. There's like other ones that, actually let me like make sure I'm getting the titles right for these ones because I haven't actually read them. Yeah, there's multi-amory essential tools for modern relationships. I've heard that one's good. And then Dr. Liz Powell, their book is Building Open Relationships, which I've heard really good things about as well. Also somebody who works in coaching and like mental health. And then the other one, what am I thinking of? There's Building Open Relationships. And then there's Designer Relationships, which is by Mark A. Michaels and Patricia Johnson. So those are some other books. I haven't read those ones personally, but I've heard really good things about them. And almost all of them are very cheap on Amazon. You can get a really cheap Kindle version, or sometimes occasionally there is also an Audible version. So those would be what I would look for if I was you. So those are my recommendations. Good question. All right, we got 10 minutes left, so get in your questions now or hold your peace until next Friday. I'm of the age when the internet was young, and I remember having to go into seedy sex shops to find BDSM porn that also cost a lot, so you had to be invested. Now porn is basically free and easy. Yeah, I think that's definitely made some changes to people and like how they access stuff for sure. OMG was doing some research on some classwork today, and corsets were totally modest in Victorian times, according to the Catholic Church. Well, I mean, yeah, like corsetry was corsets were not meant to be seen. Like they were undergarments. Like they were protective undergarments that were used to help support women, and like were used before bras were invented. So like I don't like it. Like I guess it would be like I wouldn't expect the Catholic Church to be like long underwear is immodest. I think because corsets have become something you only see in like fetish material. I think it's become synonymized with things that are less modest, but like it's not any more immodest than, you know, hosiery is in general. Like, because if anything, it would have kept you more modest, and like not wearing a corset was seen as immodest because you were flying out there with no support, no protection. How dare you? It's quite intense. I think unless you've been choked, it's easy to underestimate how dangerous it is just by looking at it. I mean, even I think for people that do it, I think because a lot of the side effects for choking that can be intense and severe, like they don't show up right away necessarily. And so you can do choking and be like, well, that turned out fine. And then like not act like, because the risk is, and I kind of get into this video I'm making, like there's risk associated with choking that is cumulative. Like it's not just the, ooh, one time we did it and it was safe, and the next time we do it and it's safe, and therefore it's safe. Like there's other things that are being built up the more and more often you do it that actually can lead potentially to a higher risk of damage occurring. And like sometimes even like bad things happen that people aren't physically aware of until like much later on down the line. So I think choking, if anything, gives people kind of a false sense of security. Because, like, when you're spanking someone, you have, like, very immediate tactile feedback to what's going on. If you're putting needles in somebody, you can see what's happening immediately. There's not this level of, like, secrecy of what's really going on in somebody's, like, you know, brain. The way that there is with choking, you know? There's, like, the way your circulatory and your nervous system is affected is very hidden in a lot of ways with breath play as compared to other forms of play that are popular. I found porn in a field one time. Apparently everybody just finding porn in the woods. What the heck? This is a very universal experience, I guess. I don't know. Never found that before. Never even thought to look, to be honest. All right, let's get to maybe one or two more questions here. Yep, we got to Miranda's question. Thank you, Miranda. I'm trying to scroll through for questions here. From what I understand, VPNs have enough practical use in remote work environments that banning them outright would be logistically impractical, if not impossible. Okay, well, thank you for remote work. Making it so VPNs stick around. Fun thing about a VPN, you can't ban them. They're the backbone of corporate networks, and it's all HTTPS. Blocking them is nigh impossible. Okay, well, good to know. Thank God we got that at least. I use a TENS unit for chronic pain. I never thought to use it for other reasons. Oh yeah, people love using TENS units for all sorts of other fun things. There's some videos you can see people online like using them to do like kind of like funny like prank challenge video stuff. Yeah. The Zapper is no longer manufactured. The spiritual successor is the Stinger from Doc Johnson, or the Electro Shank if you want more pain. Oh, really? I didn't know the Zapper stopped being made. I don't really keep up with Electro play, so I did not know that. But thank you for informing me. TENS machines are quite cheap. You can find a pretty good one for like 15 to 25 pounds. Like, what am I thinking? I'm thinking of like the TENS. I'm thinking of like the box. Maybe that's like a different device that does a similar thing. Because, yeah, there's, like, individual, like, very, like, simplistic TENS units I think are pretty cheap. But there's ones that are more kink specific that get quite pricey. Different power units. Yeah. Like the 2B, like things like the 2B and stuff are like $500. Like they would be quite expensive. So there's ones that are more like, more specialty that are really high quality. I think they do it. I don't know how if they actually like they're Their power units. I guess there's sort of like there's E-stim and then there's TENS units, and I guess I'm sort of talking about them synonymously, but like there's like a difference there. There's like a Kink E-stim device, and then there's like a basic like a physical therapy TENS unit. So. And there's again, like Electro play is not really my thing. I don't really do it. I know kind of the basics from taking classes, and I do like occasionally play with like E-stim or TENS unit stuff, but it's not a main kink of mine, and I don't top for it. So take any things I say about Electro play with a grain of salt, and also feel free to correct me if I say something wrong, because I might. The kink-specific Electro play boxes are more expensive and tend to have more kinky features. Yeah, like I remember the 2B one, like there's like a music feature on it. Like it'll zap to like the beat of music. Like there's things like that you're not really gonna get on a bog standard like physical therapy centered device. The price of a TENS unit is directly related to the breadth of its features. Yeah, I imagine that. A lot of the violet wands though, like are like basically all the more or less the same as each other, and you're paying more for brand there. But TENS unit I think is like more feature dependent for sure. TENS units rock. Somebody loves TENS. I feel like there is a correlation between people I know that work in the tech industry and people who like Electro play. Wonder what the commonality is there. I saw a question here, and then I lost it for a second when I went to go Google E-stim devices. Electric shocks scare me. At a haunted house, the haunts had fake tasers that were too much for me. Oh no, that would be really scary for me too. I feel you on that, Sarah. I would not be down for that. I like doing haunts and stuff. Like there aren't really like as much. They're really like a thing around here as far as I can tell. But when I lived on the East Coast, they were more of a thing. But like sometimes they definitely you gotta be careful which one you go to, and like especially the ones that are really like noisy. Like, and if somebody went up behind me and like made that noise, I would definitely freak out for sure. Not comfortable for me, IMO. Webkins was a little after my time. I never got into Webkins. I'm glad that the rant was appreciated. Thank you. Thank you. I tried my best. Get all my thoughts in there. I try not to underestimate the power of teenage testosterone horny, but it's not an experience I have, so I'm sure I'm going to underestimate it regardless. I don't want my kids learning about sex in school. I'll teach them at home when the time is right. Will you, though? And then the question of the age is, the answer is, they will give them a little pamphlet on their wedding night that explains what sex is. And I am not even joking. If you don't believe me, go find a clip of the wedding episode from the early seasons of the Duggars. Okay, when the Duggars still had a show on TLC. What was that called? 18 Kids and Counting? Something like that. I don't know what number they were at the time. But they're they kind of go, oh, I mean, you kind of know what it is, but now we're explaining what your marital obligations are for the first time. It's like, ah, Jesus. Ah, jeez. I am glad that you like being here, Michelle. Thank you. Doctors believe what women tell them challenge impossible. Exactly. It is impossible sometimes. We're chatting about stuff. What's the difference between kinky and freaky? What's the definition of kinky and freaky? I don't know if freaky has a definition. I've never heard that in like any kind of authoritative sense. I feel like if I had to go off of vibes, here's my vibe-based answer on kinky versus freaky. Freaky means you are down typically in a readily accessible vanilla sexual capacity on a casual basis. Like when somebody says they're like freaky in like a song, my assumption is they're okay with like casual hookups, maybe date or no date, and when they get to the, you know, the events, they're kind of down for whatever, but it's all very focused on vanilla sexuality. Whereas kink is a super broad term for like non-normative intimacy practice, and that can involve sex. It cannot involve sex. It's a wider array of activities, but it's kind of within the realm of, you know, it's not normative. Usually it's for the most part under the purview of the BDSM umbrella. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna try to get to one more here. If I can find one. So much tasks hard for me to me. I know there's questions in here. I do not have an updated kink gear list. I don't know if I'm gonna make one at this point, TBH. I may at some point, but it's like it's hard to keep track of everyone. There's so many places, but certainly for maybe my faves list, I'll probably do one of maybe just like my favorites and not like everything ever for all of time. What are your top 3 favorite types of punishments? Well, I don't really like any kind of like, in like my relationships, I don't really like playing with punishments as like a tool in general. I think my favorite ideas for punishments that I like to tell other people about that I think are like fun for people to do. Probably anything involving like hot sauce based torture things. Anything involving like hot sauce, wasabi, that kind of wheelhouse I think is fun. Anything that involves having to do a really repetitive, boring task. So like picking up rice off of the ground from the carpet, writing lines, you know, having to stare into a corner for a long period of time. Anything that's kind of like repetitive and playing on boredom I think is really fun. I just like have too many. I'm like kind of trying to narrow. I'm like I have too many different like ideas for punishments I tell people about. What's one that I'm like particularly proud of? It's hard to choose. Legitimately, I'm like, what do I pick? What do I pick? Because like, what does favorite mean? Like, oh, I know. This is what I thought of originally, and then it left my brain for a second. Sound/music and video based torture, i.e., making a person listen to and or watch something that they find really annoying or distasteful. Not in like any extreme way, not like gore porn or anything, but like the Teletubbies or like Barney or something. And like, especially if you kind of warp it and like mess with the audio or something and make it, you know, just like a little bit out of sync or pitched down or pitched up, like just amplify the annoyingness of it. I think that's also really fun. So those are my top three punishments. Yeah, exactly. Corner time is my bane. Spank me, whip me, make me write lines, mouse oping, sure. Oh yeah, mouse oping. That one's definitely up there too. Sure, even hot sauce or figging, but corner time, so boring. Yep, that's definitely the real punishment there for sure. I'm a freaking bad, gets out Captain Crunch whistle. Yeah, exactly. I accidentally touched myself after preparing my habanero peppers at OMG. I'm definitely not into hot sauce. Well, it's good you learned that way, I suppose. I would die with a mukbang. Freaking hate mouse sounds. I mean, don't give anyone any ideas. But yeah, so like a mukbang would work too, right? I personally, for me, my least favorite scene is the bit of one of the Lord of the Rings movies. And I'm so sorry. I don't remember any of the names of any of the people. I've read the books. It's been a long time. I haven't watched the movies in probably like almost 10 years. I don't remember anything about anything. But when like the gross guy is like eating like the food at like the really big table, and like they definitely like make it so you can hear all of the gross food noises. That I do not like. That I don't appreciate. If I had to listen to that, I would definitely, like, especially if I have to watch it too, it would be really gross. Evie's gonna get some poor soul in a situation where they have to watch a Hallmark movie. I mean, that's certainly not the worst thing I've ever, like, given anyone an idea to do before. Oh my god, yeah. They definitely used to play Baby Shark at the end of dungeons to get people to leave. That's the technique there. Anyways, oh my gosh, thank you all so much for watching on this beautiful Friday evening. I gotta get back to work so I can finish writing this script I'm working on. Thank you all so much for joining me. And if you want to come back, we stream every Friday at 6 o'clock here on YouTube. Video should be coming out tomorrow as well. If you want to catch that, please do subscribe. And hopefully, yes, Worm Tongue. Thank you. It was Worm Tongue. Thank you. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for being here. I thank you. Bendita thanks you. Stay safe. Have a fun weekend.